Hey y'all, today I'm going to break down all 23 stash locations on customs, where to find them, and stash run ideas, depending on your playstyle. Let's get into it. So, as I just mentioned, customs has 23 hidden stash locations, all mostly spread out throughout the map. For those unaware, these hidden stashes can spawn almost any item in the game, such as coveted armbands, Sobralo armors, graphics cards, LUTXs, tank batteries, and basically anything else you can think of. Due to these loot tables, stash running can be extremely profitable, and pretty fun too, since you never know what you're going to find. I'm going to show you where to find each stash, then I'll suggest a few routes you can take, depending on if you'd like to avoid PvP or not. Just to help out, I've included some timestamps in the description of this video if you'd like to skip ahead to potential runs, or simply just navigate around the video. Here we go. So, starting from the red barn side of Landbridge, the first two stashes are located under this pipe, and here in this bush. Moving through Dead Scav hole in the wall, we're gonna run over to the garage building, where the stash is located inside of this tire. From there, we'll run over towards porta potties, with one stash in between these bushes, and then another on the opposite side of the train tracks, inside this bush. Next, let's run over towards the back of old gas station, and then we'll find a stash located at the very back corner, right here. Looping back around, we'll run past Fortress towards this concrete train area. Underneath the concrete, here is another stash. Then after that, we'll run past Skeleton towards the bus station, cross over this metal pipe, and the next stash is located inside of this open shipping crate. From there, let's run towards the back of bus station, and there's a stash inside of this bush. Then we'll quickly loop back towards the front of bus station, and there's a stash inside of this tire out front. Moving towards new gas station, head up onto this train bridge, then turn left, and there is a stash next to this lamppost. We're about halfway through now. Let's continue along this train track, then swing a left up towards this little indented area. There's a stash under this chain link fence. Moving down towards the edge of the map, we'll find another stash inside of this bush. Then let's move towards the little power station at the top of this hill, where a stash is located right on the edge of it. Then let's run down this road, and by these two rocks, taking a left, there's a stash under this tree. Now running down this road towards this dumpster, there is a stash right behind the dumpster. Then let's loop back towards new gas station, and we'll find a stash right along this fence right before the actual jump over of the fence. Then after that, we will jump through this fence and run through gas station, where we'll find a stash inside of this bush right along this wall. Now jumping this wall into the next compound, which I wouldn't recommend by the way, but I'm just doing this for time, we'll find a stash inside of this ditch, and then running towards the sniper checkpoint under the wall, and then going around along this wall, we'll find a stash inside of this bush here. From there, we'll run into the last little complex of customs with a stash right in the corner here by admin gate, then run towards this tech building where there is a stash hidden by these pipes, and then finally the last stash is right here in the corner of this map by this bush. So now that we know where each stash is, I'll break down some routes that you may want to take or avoid depending on where you spawn and of course how you like to play. I'll also be sure to mention the places where running into players is more common, and then it'll let you decide if you'd like to take that risk or not. So let's get right into that. So when it comes towards finding a route for actual stash running on customs, one side is a little bit more biased than the other, that being this side over here. Now, there tends to be quite a few more stashes on this side that are a lot safer than over on the red barn side over here. I will show you a good route for both sides. However, just note that if you are over on the right side here, you will probably have a better time doing so. So we will start on this side just because it's generally easier, but you can also do it in reverse if you'd like to. So we're going to imagine that we spawned right around this area here inside of the Dead Scav building. Now from this building, we will want to hit this stash right outside of this tech building, then loop around to the factory far corner stash, and obviously that's in the bush right next to the toilet. Then we will run towards administrative gate, and then loop outside of admin gate and hit the stash along this bush. Now from here you can kind of take two routes. I would personally recommend going this way towards the stash by this dumpster, and then looping up to here. However, if we go back to this bush stash here, you can also run through along this wall towards the bush outside of gas station, and then loop around to the stash here. Now that is a little bit more dangerous, however it is a little bit more direct. Again, I wouldn't recommend doing that, so we're gonna go back to this spot over here. So assuming we went the dumpster route, we will hit the 2 stashes right along this power area, then we will loop towards passage between rocks. Now, some people do like to hit these stashes or even just be around this area in general. Overall, I don't find too many players, but just be a little bit cautious. Then we're going to continue along to this stash that's in the indented area. From there are 2 more routes that we can split into. Typically, I would recommend following along these train tracks here, hitting this stash if you hadn't already hit it from this area here, and then we can loop around to this stash by these train tracks. Now from there, you can either hit the 2 back stashes along here, or you can hit the back stash here, loop to the front, and then back around to the one in the shipping crate. I personally would not recommend hitting the one at the front, purely because typically scavs spawn there and some players will sometimes sit on skeleton, but generally just the scavs are kind of annoying. Another thing to keep in mind is that you are somewhat close to dorms here, and sometimes you will catch players either running from Dorms Hill here across, or just from dorms across. Now, generally, I would find that if you sit in the bushes along the back of bus terminal, or bus station as I call it, or even just in the trees around here, generally you are not going to get spotted or shot at. Again, I'm only really mentioning that if you do really want to avoid PvP, you can always just avoid these stashes and kind of loop around either the back of dorms here, or you can just kind of cross without looting. Doesn't really matter which way you go, as both of them, you'll kind of have the same chance of running into players. Just note that dorms v exit is here as well, and some people do like to exfil there. Now, from there, we can continue across the road towards Dorms Hill, and then towards Smuggler's Boat. Now, if Smuggler's Boat is not there, then you can loop under Main Bridge, hit this stash in the bush area, then hit the stash around the pipe, then you can loop up to Ruaf, which in my experience is always there. I think it used to be sometimes there exfil, but I believe it is always there now. So if you spawn on the right side of the map, this is my recommended route. You can always take the jump over here, hit this stash, and then loop around to Old Gas Station, hit these stashes here. However, in my experience, you're going to run into a lot of players by Fortress and Crack House. But that is also a route that you could take if you'd like to. Now, let's move on to the actual route if you spawn on the other side. Now, if you do spawn on the other side, typically you're not going to have as much of a fun time doing a stash run, purely because the concentration of stashes is not typically around this area. You'll find a lot more over here, but that's just kind of how the game is, and you don't always spawn on one side, so it's good to know both ways. So from this spawn, typically I spawn either around this side or this side. You can spawn inside of the Red Barn area, but typically I spawn on the 2 sides here. So I'll just show you those 2 routes there. So if you spawn by Main Bridge here, typically what I do is either run across Main Bridge and take a right, or run across Land Bridge and also take a right. These both lead to the 2 stashes here and here, which are usually not that contested. From there you have 2 options. If you don't mind running into players that much, I would recommend running up through the dead body hole in the wall, hitting the stash by Garage, and then looping towards Porta Potty, and then through there to Old Gas Station, you will get another stash. Typically, I find that route is somewhat contested, like I had said earlier, but it is there, and that's going to be one of the good options if you spawn on the other side. Now, a route that I find is a little bit safer, if you want to be a little bit more cautious, you can actually take the route towards the Dorms Hill. Now, Dorms Hill is generally kind of contested because it's by dorms, obviously. However, I find that if you stray a little bit closer to the road here, kind of along this area here, and then cross towards the bus station, generally you're not going to have too bad of a time. Obviously be careful because there are players around, but I find that it's not too bad. From there you can obviously hit the stash here, you can hit the stash behind Bus Depot over here, This one is optional. I typically don't hit it like I'd said in the other one, but it is there if you'd like to hit it and get another stash to loot. Then from there, typically I loop up to Train Bridge, hit the stash right along this lamppost, and then I will loop towards the back of, or I guess the side of New Gas Station. Typically there are the chance for players to be there. There's also the chance for Rashala to be there. I find that it's not that bad to loot because you have a wall between you and the gas station, so it's not that dangerous, but just be careful. Some people also do like to sit on this power station hill, so just keep that in mind. And then regardless of if you loot that stash or not, you're going to make your way over to this little indented area up here. After you get to that indented area, I find that there aren't too many players here. There could be players coming from dorms. However, generally speaking, you should not have too much action from there. Then obviously from there, we can loop around to Passage Between Rocks. And if you'd like to, you can hit these stashes around here. But just keep in mind, like I'd said, some people do tend to linger around this area. They might be doing Shooterborn in Heaven, or just being weird and standing around for some reason. People do that. I don't know why. It's Tarkov. From there, regardless of if you loot those stashes or not, you can either come from Passage Between Rocks, or from here, you'll move towards the military base checkpoint. And keep in mind, all the three things that I'm naming up here, these are scav exfils. You can't exfil there from PMCs anymore. Anyway, regardless, military base checkpoint, you will loot the stash by the dumpster. And then now that we're on this side, we kind of have a little bit more freedom of where we want to go. I find that this whole area down here is generally pretty safe. You'll find some scavs. Sometimes there are players sitting inside of green screen room. But generally speaking, you should have not too much contested area. Anyway, from there, we will move towards this stash on the little bush wall. Then we can move through to Admin Gate, loot the stash there, then run along towards ZB11, or 1011, sorry, and then hit the stash alongside this tech building. And then finally, we can finish off this run with the stash near Factory Far Corner. And then you can obviously exfil at ZB1011. So hopefully that was clear, concise, and helped give you an idea of how to approach stashes on customs. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, why not subscribe? Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.